Stanley Donwood was working as a freelance artist in Plymouth in 1994 when he received a surprise call from former classmate Thom Yorke. Radiohead, the Oxford-based band that Yorke fronted, had released their debut album Pablo Honey a year before, spawning a massive hit in the form of their debut single Creep. The duo had met while studying fine art and English literature at Exeter University in the late 80s, and would frequently venture from the drab environment of the Fine Art Building to the hallowed grounds of the Graphic Design Department, whose tech exceeded what was available to them elsewhere. There were no computers available for the art students, so they had to pretend they were working on a project involving graphic design. Yorke's first impression of Donwood was that his hat and suit were better than his, and that pissed him off. He said, "I figured I'd either end up really not liking this person at all, or working with him for the rest of my life." The surprise phone call came in 1994, after Thom had become frustrated in dealing with the record label's bland ideas for artwork, and so the pair collaborated on the cover art for Radiohead's EP My Iron Lung, and soon after for the cover of the second album, The Bends. Yorke remembers wandering around the basement of the John Radcliffe Hospital in Oxford with a video camera looking for a tank ventilator. They found some resuscitation dummies instead, which gave rise to the image on the band's second album, released the following year. Then came OK Computer in 1997. The blue and white palette was the result of trying to make something the colour of bleached bone. Motifs in the artwork include motorways, aeroplanes, families, corporate logos, and cityscapes. The photograph of a motorway on the cover was likely taken in Hartford, Connecticut. White scribbles are everywhere in the artwork, which was Donwood's method of correcting mistakes rather than using the computer function undo, which he banned himself from using to see what he would create. It's quite rare for a band to be as interested in their visual representation as the music, but so important did Radiohead consider the artwork that Donwood was invited to move into the studio during the recording of Kid A, so that his paintings might respond to the developing mood of the album. The artwork reflected the apprehension felt by many at the turn of the new millennium, together with the band's own anxieties following the phenomenal success of OK Computer. Yorke has written that he and Donwood were obsessed with triangular mountains and had visions of pyramids flying over us. He said, "We started to use the computer to collapse geology into itself and to exaggerate mountains and gorges." Donwood said, "We wanted to populate the landscape with stalking creatures like pylons that had come to life with half-completed cartoon behemoths, and floating red cubes, aerial swimming pools of blood." One of these visions made it onto the cover of the album, a jagged mountainscape digitally stretched out of all proportion. Donwood painted on large canvases with knives and sticks, then photographed the paintings and manipulated them with Photoshop. Donwood said he saw the mountains as some sort of cataclysmic power. He was inspired by a photograph taken during the Kosovo War, depicting a square metre of snow full of the detritus of war, such as military equipment and cigarette stains. He said, "I was so upset by it in a way war had never upset me before. It felt like it was happening in my street." Yorke and Donwood made many versions of the album cover, with different pictures and different titles in different typefaces. Unable to pick one, they taped different options to cupboards of the studio kitchen and went to bed. Apparently, the choice was obvious the next day. For their next album, Hail to the Thief, Donwood joined them during the recording in Hollywood. He initially planned to create artwork based on photographs of phallic topiary, but the idea was rejected by Yorke. Instead, the cover art is a roadmap of Hollywood with words and phrases taken from roadside advertising in Los Angeles, such as God, TV, and oil. Donwood said advertising was designed to be attractive, but there was something unsettling about being sold something. He took the advertising slogans out of context to get to its pure heart. Other words in the artwork were taken from Yorke's lyrics and political discussion surrounding the War on Terror. Among them is Burn the Witch, the title of a song Radiohead did not complete until their 9th album, A Moon-Shaped Pool, in 2016. Comparing the cover to the more subdued palettes of his prior Radiohead artworks, Donwood described the bright, pleasing colours as ominous because all the colours used are derived from the petrochemical industry. Next came In Rainbows, and Donwood again worked in the studio while Radiohead worked on the album, allowing the artwork to convey the mood of the music. He displayed images in his studio and on the studio computer for the band to interact with and comment on. He also posted images daily on the Radiohead website, though none were used in the final artwork. He experimented with photographic etching, putting prints into acid baths and throwing wax at paper, creating images influenced by NASA space photography. He originally planned to explore suburban life, but realised it did not fit with the album, saying, "The music took a different direction and became much more organic and sensual. The final artwork is very colourful. It's a rainbow, but it's also toxic. It's more like the sort of one you'd see in a puddle of petrol." Radiohead did not reveal the cover until the day of release. For their next collaboration, King of Limbs, and as with previous Radiohead albums, Donwood worked in a studio as the band recorded nearby. He painted oil portraits of the Radiohead members in the style of Gerhard Richter, but abandoned them as he'd never painted with oils before and said it was just a series of painted disasters. Instead, the music made Donwood think of immense multicoloured cathedrals of trees, with music echoing from the branches while strange fauna lurked in the fog. He and Yorke drew trees with eyes and limbs and mouths, creating strange multi-limbed creatures inspired by Northern European fairy tales. The artwork for their next album, A Moon-Shaped Pool, was created with Donwood working in a barn with speakers connected to La Fabrique studio in France, where they recorded nearby, allowing their music to influence the art again. Wanting to move away from figurative art and create work that was more a product of chance, Donwood initially conceived a painting robot that would squirt paint at canvases, but this proved technically difficult. Instead, he experimented with weather, leaving canvases outdoors to allow the elements to affect the paint over time. Donwood continued the weathering process in Oxfordshire during the band's winter break, with completely different results, before photographing the works and editing them on Photoshop with Thom Yorke. The results are this beautiful minimal cover that conveys the dreamy atmosphere of the album that Thom Yorke said was based on the sound of the song Daydreaming. Stanley Donwood has also created all of the artwork for Thom Yorke's solo projects, as well as the albums for his other band, The Smile. All of the Radiohead artwork is to go on display at the Ashmolean Museum in Oxford in August of this year. The multimedia exhibition will include all of the album covers that they've designed together, as well as personal sketchbooks and notebooks that have never been seen before in public. The exhibition will run until January of 2026. Which album artwork is your favourite? Leave your comments below and like and subscribe for new weekly videos on the lives of the artists.